panel discussion, which was called the Asian community discussion, and it was just a opportunity to reflect on the recent tragedy that has happened in Georgia.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we had our panel discussion this past Sunday. We pulled in the family. It was yeah, Pastor Brad and I were going back and forth like, should we do it? Should we do it? And it's
Mm.
like, yes, let's make space. Let's
Yes.
make
Mm.
space
Yes.
for this. And yeah, so I wanted to ask you all cuz we were asked on Sunday. Just like what were you processing? What was going through your mind when this happened?
The discussion, or are you talking about the?
Well, both.
Oh, okay. It was, well, I'll speak on the discussion. One of the first things that like I enjoyed about it was that the church wasn't business as usual. Like if something crazy is happening, we don't say, "Oh no, but we got to stick to this and we got to keep doing this." We're able to actually be the church and talk about stuff. And that to me, because I've seen people do business as usual.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yes.
we're still on this sermon series. We got to talk about this. I wrote this out. We got to finish it. But instead, like we had like people from the Asian community come and talk to us and educate us. So that was the first thing I got out of that. The second thing was all the things that y'all said. I feel like incredibly like ignorant uh in about like the culture. That's why we had that discussion that time we had before rewind. It's like and I love those kind of conversations
Right.
because it starts to like paint who this person is and where they come from and so yeah, so just that education and seeing how the people who are in the Asian community who are in our church are dealing with this moment. Yeah.
Yeah. I would say for me, uh, I'll just reflecting on the event that happened. Definitely deeply saddened and just a lot of questioning of like why does this stuff still continue? Like why is it another hashtag? Why is it another mass shooting? And it made me think about like as sad as it sounds, like when we were in the pandemic, the early lockdown, none of that stuff was happening.
Mm.
And I was like, man, it's like, why do we go revert back? You have so much time to reflect and ponder on what we've been as an American country, as an American country. And it's like literally as a country starts to reopen, we're going back to the same type of things that we've heard or seen before. So it was like very disheartening to like see that. And I'm like, man, like it's just really just messed up. And so and then off of the discussion, uh, I think some of the takeaways that I initially had was that um, a lot of you all that were up on the stage were very passionate, and I could tell, and I could feel that, and it's like you all wish that this would have been like the Asian community would have been already like more taken care of or more like sought after to learn about them rather than a tragedy is now happened and occurred and now people are looking at Asian lives and what that culture is like. But I'm like it's like this should have been long ago where you should have already respected and understood and appreciated what Asian culture is.
I think something that stood out to me, what you were just saying, Julius, is like we lived through a pandemic, right?
Yes.
And then you see everything that, like the unrest, literally everything that has happened over the past year. And I'm like, okay, like, are we learning? Like, are we actually like making progress, or is this just exposure to what has always been there?
Mm.
And I'm like, maybe it's both,
Mm.
you know. But yeah, I don't know. It's very hard to process, and I know with the events, the most recent event of what just even happened yesterday, it's like it's so much to take in. It's tiring. It's draining.
Mhm.
Yes.
Um, you just find yourself. It's like okay, there are days when you just have to try to create space to have those moments where like yes, I feel joy, or
Mm.
yes, I feel peace, because there's just so much happening. There's so much happening.
Yeah. And one thing that I thought about just off of the recent events in Colorado was that I think what really like gives me more like I have more empathy is like I think about, man, if that's my brother, my you know, aunt, uncle, grandparents, whatever it is, I think then it like really hits me a little bit harder because I'm like, these people were it's like, where can you go just to be safe or like be around family or community, and you have a gunman running around, and it's just like it really just like bothers me that why aren't we in a safe like safe situations? Why are people like this? Why do they terrorize or want to like go after certain demographics? And so it's like very challenging to like really like you said, like to process why, and like are we learning? I don't know. Some like it's tough to be like, are we really learning when we revert back to the same kind of behavior when we were literally forced into isolation because of a deadly disease that was wiping out plenty of people, and now due to like human against human now we are now causing injury and harm. So I'm like, why at the end of the day?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think too, like, just in the pandemic, like, you asked that question, like, are we learning? I think too, like, there's a part where we're all in these isolated in our homes, and our only communication that we're having is through the internet, and I think it might embolden some of the beliefs that people already have.
Yeah.
That's a
And
good point.
the internet gets nasty,
Yep.
like Facebook and Twitter and all that stuff. Like people can get nasty, and just the fact that they don't have to be around other people, that it just emboldens their beliefs that they already have.
Yep.
And I think that's kind of some of the danger that's coming from this. Even when we in the beginning when we were going through a lot of the Black Lives Matter stuff, the marches and things like that. People were forcing themselves out of their home to go march on the street
Right.
and stuff like that, and that presented a certain level of community. But then now we are back home, quarantine in our house again, and I think like the beliefs that they have, that people have, they're either emboldening the ones that they have already, or they're being fed new ideas. And because I remember a while back, something happened, somebody got killed, something like that, and it was one of those deaths where you couldn't say much. Like if you were on the other side and you just didn't believe racism exists and stuff like that, you couldn't say much to this. And for like 2-3 days, like the people that I normally see saying things weren't saying anything because I'm like, okay, you just can't find anything negative to say it, like, or you can't find a way to say that racism doesn't exist now, or they caused this on themselves.
Yeah.
And then I remember it was like a couple days later, then all of a sudden the certain news sites and stuff like that started giving people the words to say to talk against it. So to again belittle the victim.
Yep.
They started and then all of a sudden these people that were silent for days, they start talking and they started regurgitating the same stuff that was just said to them. So like when Brian had brought up our leadership, using like sharing a narrative to so many people, like, yeah, man, that causes something, and you got a whole squad of people who are listening to this person. Like, this is a leader, like, and yeah, so yeah, I think some people are learning and some people are just emboldening their beliefs.
You brought up a good point, like on the internet, because they try to be internet bullies, and like you can't be stopped. Obviously, you're behind a computer screen,
Yep.
and so when they are like talking all reckless and saying whatever they feel, obviously there's nobody there to check them, and they're gonna try to and they're just gonna continue on with it rather, and knowing well, to them it's right, but to the rest of the world it's not right, and you're targeting specific groups of people, saying negative things or saying untrue things. And that could be stemmed from you're getting it from somewhere. You're getting it from somebody that you may follow or believe in the same things. And it's like that's what creates this whole like prejudice system, is because now that's being passed on from one person to the next person to the next person, and this is how like rumors are like created and things of that nature. And it's just like there has to be intervention somewhere, and it's tough to be a minority and try to intervene when it's the majority of a different race that feels this way. And it's like, we need some allies at the end of the day, like somebody who can help us. Like, do you actually see it the way we're seeing it? Do you believe it and understand that what is going on is real and it's true and this is not made up?
Yeah.
Or are you just gonna sit back and be with the majority who feels that way? And it's very tough to like kind of bridge that gap.
Yeah.
I wanted to just go off of your point too, Corey, about finding words, because as you were saying, like, people stop talking until the news media brings in, okay, this is the language you're going to start using around it. And it's always like that, because we didn't know what social distancing was until it became a thing in the
Social
news,
distancing,
Exactly.
right? So it's like it's crazy, because again, what people are believing and the words that they find. But I think what is so hard to process and like comprehend and then also move forward as an Asian American woman, it's difficult when people are starting to have language, to finally start talking about mental health, to finally start calling out racism, to finally start combating anti-blackness that takes place in communities, to finally start coming against white supremacy. Like, we're starting to have language to discuss that with people that don't understand that translation. And it blows my mind just like how easily that can be overlooked when another narrative is just like, oh no, it's not a big deal.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like all you need is an excuse.
Yeah.
All you need is an excuse because you just don't want to believe something. Like, and once you give the words, and that's why this is important, right? Like, because how can we help, or how can we echo the narrative that gives that encourages more empathy? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
if we are in these silos where like we're just hearing the same thing over and over and over again, stuff like this, you know what I'm saying? Us talking about it or sharing, because you had mentioned, you said, what did you say? Silence is a trauma response. You know, and I'm like, dang, I mean, because yeah, you get to this point where you're like, I just, you know, like I don't. But if there is words that you can find, or after there's, you know, time to be able to speak on these things, so that people have the words to be able to have the empathy, because I mean, we're ignorant until we're made knowledgeable. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah.
One thing I'll say that I love about being a part of City of Light is that we're very intentional when it comes to addressing these issues, and we don't shy away from it. And it's something that I appreciate. Like, and like seeing the group of people that were up here on Sunday, like, nah, we just didn't find them this week. I was
Right,
like, yeah,
right,
I was like, we
right,
didn't
right.
Like,
find
this is
them this
family,
week.
like,
this
yeah.
is really
Yeah.
what.
Yeah. It wasn't
it's a
fake.
key
It wasn't fake.
representation of
Yeah.
like what City of Light is about,
Straight
and
up.
that we are bridging that gap between, you know, city and suburban communities and different
Yeah.
people and different backgrounds. And so like it just makes me like, that's something I thought about, is that like this is truly a representation of what we are and how we come together.
Yeah.
You know, and we just don't you know, ignore it. We don't go back to business. Like,
Yeah.
we take the time to address what is really going on, because it's real. We know it's real. We care about it, and we're
Yeah.
supporting are the ones that are, you know, feeling, you know, are hurt and are saddened by what is going on. So that's just something that, I don't know, but a little off topic, but it's really something
No.
I really love about City of Light.
Yeah.
Yep.
I agree. Like you said, we didn't just find like
Exactly. Dina didn't just come
like
off the
like
street.
Dina ain't just
Yeah.
like pop up like you know what I'm
Exactly.
saying. And so like these people didn't pop up, and
Yeah.
and that's low key. Like, to be 100%, like that's what keeps me in the church. That's what keeps me here, is that it's the church for real. And it's like, and it's bigger than City of Light. It's like what God is doing in the church. Because for me, I've never seen anything like this in my life. I've never been a part of a church in my life that was this intentional about talking about everything. Like we literally could talk about everything. Like, and
Nah, you real, and I like. I just think about like, and we are so like event based too with it. Like, I think of the multi-ethnic family dinner.
Yeah.
Like, that is really cool. And we're talking about, you know, just sensitive subjects,
Yeah.
but we doing it as a family,
Yeah.
and we're coming together, and we're not shying away from asking,
appreciate
you know, like tough questions, or you know, questions that you legitimately want to know the answer to because you don't know how to maybe act or speak, you know, to a certain group of people. So I think that is just one event that comes to mind that we're just intentional with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yo, we're not trying to pat just ourselves
Right,
on the
right,
back, okay?
right.
Like this is
Like, we
real
just
for
promoting,
this,
like-
this right. Like I think this is real for all of us.
Yeah.
And I agree too. I've never been a part of a church where it's been like this many people, and then for people to stay. I'm just like,
Yes.
well, okay, everybody stay. Let's go. We on the same boat, you know. My
Straight
boat
up.
is your boat.
Straight up. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it really
man.
goes a long way, and for us to just really just grow in relationship and grow to know one another, and you get to experience like different cultures by being like a part of it and sticking, you know, obviously with the community. And I think we just really do a great job of just attracting all different types of backgrounds. And yeah, it really just starts with the leadership here, honestly, and that's been their mission. And yeah, I think we've done such a great job of it. So it's really great to see us take the time out to really just address what's going on, and really try to support, you know, in the best, and learn and figure out like, hey, how can we help, and how can we, you know, it's not obviously the greatest of events going on or situations, but it's like, what if anything is possible that we can do to try to just like help. Yep.
Yeah, I think it's really, really complex because I think there are so many aspects to being Asian American. Because Asia is such a big country too.
Right.
And so you have so many different people. And then like even I think this is across the board, like in the United States, right? It also depends on like what part of the country you're in too, what you
Yes.
experience. And so
Mm.
it's so different for everyone, and it's so different generationally. It's
Mhm.
been so different generationally. I think that's what makes it so complex. But I think being in spaces like this is important. And I don't know, like inviting people in, I think is good, into each other's stories, into just time of getting to know people genuinely for who they are. Because then when things like this do happen, it's like it's already there. The trust is already there. You know, the space is already created. And I think that in a city like Milwaukee, where we're so segregated, we don't have to choose this, right? We don't have to choose to be in spaces like this. And I'm going to say what I said again on Sunday, like solidarity is intentional, solidarity is sacrificial. So if we want to see this, I'm going to have to sacrifice my time to be here, even if I'd rather be watching Netflix, you know, or even if I'd rather, you know, just be out and about, you know. It's so it's like I think that's a personal decision for everyone, right? It's a personal decision. It's a choice that we all make of, am I going to choose unity? Am I going to go to a rally, right? Am I going to go to a vigil? Am I going to go to one of the marches? Am I going to read books, listen to podcasts? You know, am I going to invite people over to have a meal together? You know? Especially as we're getting, you know, like the world is starting to open up again, right? Like, are we going to be intentional about those things?
That's good.
Yeah, having intentional discussions could lead to solutions that, yeah, that could help somebody that came in, you know, just blinded to what's really going on. And by having those discussions and letting them know about your background or experiences, then hopefully it's eye-opening to them to not just understand, but also want to be proactive in their efforts to, you know, really commit to solidarity. It makes me think of just a few weeks ago we had being a righteous revolutionary, and I think thinking about
Fits right in, doesn't
yeah,
it?
and I'm
Right.
like, bro, you bring up this event, and it's like this is exact prime example of when you could be a righteous revolutionary. And for those who don't know, it's somebody who speaks up for those that have been underrepresented, or speaks up for those who have been oppressed, and not shying away from the opportunity to, like, when you're in the room, to like really you let them know like, hey, this is right or this isn't right, and just being bold about it. So yeah, shout out to Keisha for that great
Yeah.
message, and I think it's just an opportunity like now to like for your brothers, your sisters to stand up for them because they are oppressed.
Mm. No, it's real. It's real. I'm taking that one home. Solidarity is a commitment. It's a sacrifice. Um, yeah, I'm taking that one home. I think too, like like you said, just to kind of piggyback on what you said, when stuff like this happens, it's hard to talk to somebody you haven't talked to.
Yeah.
Like and just jump out the window and just ask them to some like super like. 'Cause I remember this when people started realizing like, oh, black people are dying by the hands of police. All of a sudden, I got all these inboxes from people like, just explain to me racism. Just break it all down for me. And I'm like, do your work. Like, I'm not, no. Like, I'm not going to re-traumatize myself for your education. Like, like, Google exists. You know what I mean? But, and a lot of these people were people I don't talk to.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, you seem safe to talk to about this. And it's like, no. But for people who have a relationship with me, it was a lot easier to explain like, yeah, this happened to me. This happens to people like me, yada, yada, yada. And like, come on, man, we're humans. Like we connect. Like I enjoy people's stories. You know what I mean? Like sitting down with folks and figuring out how they tick. Like to me, that's fire. That's what this is about. Like, you know what I mean? Like if you're just gonna sit here and not like connect with anybody, like that's kind of, I don't know, you're missing a big part out of life. So just just having those discussions, having those conversations, like you mentioned, like, and I think just being intentional too. When you have a question, just ask it.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
That's the thing with relationships is like when you get to that point where it's like the trust is built and compassion is built,
Yeah.
you can ask those questions and not feel dumb or like or
Boom.
feel like judged for it,
Yeah.
right? It's like, no, like I'm actually curious to know about this. Like,
Yeah.
can you share more? And it's like, oh, okay, I feel safe. I feel like I'm in a space where I can trust you to tell you,
Yes.
these things.
That's a benefit of community and getting to know one
Mhm.
another. Because like you said earlier, like people will just hit you up randomly asking questions.
I don't even.
As like to me, it low key comes off as ignorant because you
Mhm.
could you like certain things you could probably find out through
Right.
like through looking it up, like if it's basic definitions or stuff like that. But yeah, to come just all out the woodworks like trying to ask you all these things, it's like, well, we don't have that kind of relationship
Right.
where I feel like I should express that to you. But
At this point, you're intrusive.
yeah,
Like,
exactly. 'Cause, like something
Yeah.
happened. and
Yeah.
now- but if nothing happened, you weren't ever gonna ask. were you? So
Right.
it comes off a little shallow.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like I feel like you're using me. Because
Mhm.
then what happens after this?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, did you just want me to give you a narrative?
yeah.
for-
Something. So now you can go tell your other
Right,
counterpart.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Did you
This
want
is
to?
what I heard from. Like,
You need some
come on.
fuel for virtual signaling,
Yeah.
or like what's
Come
going on? Like, but then there's those other folks who ask me these questions,
Yeah.
and I'm still friends with, and because we never stopped being friends. So when this happened, there's like folks that who are still my friends who did say some ignorant stuff to me, just ignorant, not ignorant like rude ignorant,
Mhm.
ignorant like you just ignorant, you just don't have the knowledge.
Yeah. Mhm.
They asked me some stuff where I'm like, no, that's not,
We're not doing that.
But the fact that we had a relationship,
Yeah.
it was easy for me to move on. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Like, it was easy for me to move on. And it's like God is relational. Like,
Yeah.
that's how God is. Like, I mean, for him to even send his son for us, who clearly, take a look at the news, we're kind of trash. Like we're not we're not we're not the greatest. Like we're not the prize. like
so
like
real.
and he wants to have a relationship with us. Like relationship is what this whole thing was about.
Mhm.
Like like in order for a holy God to mess with these dirty folks, we need to have something dramatic happen. Jesus has to die, be rose again, and all of this stuff, just so I can have the relationship with you.
Yeah.
He's so relational. Like we should catch the cue here. like
right.
if he's willing to go through all of this just to be relational, maybe it's important. You know what I'm saying, to humanity. Like
And I wish more people knew that and knew that story and like really honestly truly believed it that that he died for not just me, not just you, for every single one of us, and as many bad things that we have done and all that, he said, you know what, I got to do this for my people.
Man.
Yeah. And I mean, we dive into scripture real quick. I think that leads into the first scripture that was brought up from Sunday, which was in Genesis chapter 1, verse 26, 27. I'll go ahead and read it. Then God said, let us make man in our image, according to our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. So God created man in his own image, and in the image of God he created him. Male and female, he created them. So, I mean, just looking at that initial verse, it's like we were made in the image of God. And I believe it was Pastor Brian on Sunday that, like, how can we just look at somebody else and think of less than them? Like, how? We were all came from the same creator. We were all, fearfully and wonderfully made. And it's like, what makes you think you're any better than me? Yeah, just based off the way I look, like, you got to be kidding me. Like, no, and it's like people just don't know that story, and they don't understand that God really made us all equal, and that nobody rules over anybody, and that we're all owned by one person, and that's it. Yeah.
I wanna just go off that point, Julius, because it reminded me of this. What was it? I was at a conference, and they had like breakout sessions. And this was the first time I was in a space with other Southeast Asian Americans. And so one of the leaders that was leading that session, she said that because God created Southeast Asian Americans, because he created Hmong Americans, Hmong people, he is in part that. And so when I think about it now, and it goes back to exactly what you're saying, right? Where we're all created in his image. And even though, there are so many different cultural backgrounds out there, God is in part that because he created you in his image. And so not only does he understand what you're going through, but he is also a part of that. And that like blew my mind at the time. I was just like, oh my goodness, like, yes, I can be myself. I can, and you can be yourself, and we are all created in his image, and there is value to you just because you were created in his image.
Come on now.
No, that's real. I was just reading a devotional that talked about like finding your value just through like following Christ and not worried about like the social media or the fame or the glamour. So that's just what you're talking about is like we find our value in Christ alone. So we don't have to worry about like what others necessarily think of us. Like we should just like want to love and serve one another at the end of the day. And that's what it should come down to, and really act out of kindness. And I think it was Sonny who mentioned it on Sunday, like the commandment out of Matthew, love first, love God, and then second, love your neighbor. So I mean, that's it. It ain't really that difficult, I believe. So yeah, I'll leave it at that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we're gonna move forward, right? Regardless of what the world, because I think that there's more love than is shown, right, in the media, in
big time, yes,
all those different aspects. So I think we move forward in love. We move forward in being intentional with our actions and getting to know people, being in community, building that relationship with other people around us. And I think something that stood out to me was also when Pastor Jojo shared on social media, when one hurt, we all hurt. And that's what being the body of Christ is, right? It's like if your foot hurts, your ear ain't going, you're like the whole body hurts. So,
look, I'm sick, man. I'm hurt. I don't want to feel like
right. Yeah. So So we just want to thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you for being a part of these discussions. We hope that it has blessed you today. If you would like to continue to support City of Light, if you would like to be a part of City of Light, we invite you to check out the links that we have listed on this post. Thank you so much for being here with us, and we'll see you again next time.